Now, you mentioned drugs because that's another legacy of the 60s. There were people who took drugs before, but casual drug use, normal, ordinary
It exploded
citizens.
in the 60s, and I'm not being overtly critical of what I would call recreational drug use episodically, experimentation, just like when I was coming of age. You know, we drank too much cheap whiskey and too much beer. Kids smoked some pot at that time. I talk in the book about even smoking some myself.
You'll never make it to the Supreme Court.
It was all over the place in California. But what it left behind was a vast criminal empire, and the most destructive part of that is in the inner city. And not just in New York, it's in Chicago, and wherever you go in America, you find this drug culture that is deeply rooted, and we have not done a very good job about how we're going to address it.
The women's movement also really came of age
started
in
later
the
than
60s.
people realize. You know, in 1968, in the anti-war movement or on student protests, women will tell you now that they were there mostly to get coffee and to go get sandwiches, and that there was this male chauvinism on the part of the student leaders that were mostly male about women there as sexual objects and to fulfill a clerical role.
Now, what about journalism? How much has that changed since the 60s? Because you've been through it all, through the point where it seemed to be pretty much whatever the government wanted it to be. And then we had Woodward and Bernstein. And now many people have complained that the press has once again been rather soft on going after politicians unless they see the blood in the water.
It's complicated, Leonard. You know, there's a tendency to look back on those years as the halcyon years of American journalism. But I've gone back and reviewed the Huntley-Brinkley broadcast, for example, and these were my heroes and my mentors, and even Walter's broadcast at that time. And it was mostly a world as seen through the prism of white, middle-aged establishment men living on the eastern seaboard. That's the world that we got to see. I remember, and I'm not going to say who it was, but when you had toxic shock syndrome, one of the very prominent anchors in America said, I am not going to talk about that on the air. I will not use the word tampon on the air. So we've changed a lot.